PlayStation 4 is still a relatively new console, but that doesn't mean there aren't games out there that are harder to find and are sought after by collectors. I'm your host, as always, K-Mac Time, and today we're going to take a look at the top 10 rarest and most expensive PS4 games to date. Now, before we get into this list, I do want to mention that this list is based off of current availability and prices of these games. However, that is subject to change. If one of these games end up getting another print run and becomes common, then you guys don't have to let me know in the comment sections and just let it go. It's not a big deal. But anyway, without that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right in with number 10. PT stands for Playable Teaser and was a demo for the Silent Hills horror game and became available for download on the PSN in August of 2004 for players of the series. This demo received a mass amount of attention and hype across the gaming industry, yet Konami, the game's publisher, decided to cancel the game and therefore removed the playable demo from the PlayStation Network. Since there was never any physical version of it and it was removed from the PSN store, the only way to get this game now is to buy a PlayStation 4 that already has a version of it installed, which, as you guys can imagine, it can be incredibly pricey. I mean, technically you're buying a whole system, not just one game, but it will cost you easily over $300 to play this game. Next up is an HD collection of 3 games that actually came out on the PS3. They're called Journey, Flow, and Flower, and it's called the Journey Collector's Edition. Now, all 3 of these games, like I said, came out on PS3 and are cheap, and there's even this collection edition available on PS3, which is also very common and very cheap. So you may be wondering, well, why is this version on the PS4, hard to find? Why is it collectible? Well, the reason behind this is, and we don't really know why, but this was never released in North America, instead being an Asian and European exclusive. Super weird, because we got this in physical form in America on PS3, just not on PS4. Didn't make a lot of sense, but whatever. However, like I said, the only way to get this game is to obviously import it, but all PS4 games are region free, so you can play it on NTSC PS4, but the only way to get your hands on it is to import it from either Europe or Asia. And the game's not super expensive, but you will have to pay overseas shipping, so the game will be looking around $60 to $70 with shipping. Coming in at number 8 is Oddworld New and Tasty, and this game was limited to just 5,000 physical copies ever printed worldwide. And if you're unfamiliar with what limited run games are, then allow me to fill you in, as there's a few of their games on this list. Basically, it's a small company that takes somewhat popular indie games that never got a physical release and makes them into incredibly low print run copies for collectors and fans of the series. Many of their games have under a few thousand copies ever made, and the sought after ones can demand top dollar on the secondary market. Anyway, with that out of the way, this game is one of the more sought after limited run games. It's a pretty fun platformer with some great handling, and it's got a very funny sense of humor throughout it. And if you want to buy a copy of it now on Amazon or eBay, the only way to get it is well over $100. So get out there and get it now, though, because, like I said, only 5,000 copies ever printed. Continuing on with the limited run games theme is a pair of Shantae games that recently released on the PS4. Risky's Revenge DX and Pirate's Curse both only got 6,000 physical copies ever produced for the site, and of course they sold out immediately. If you're not familiar with the Shantae series, it's a fantastic platforming game that originally came out on the Game Boy Color and is famous for being one of the rarest and most sought after Game Boy Color games as well. But now these versions are incredibly collectible and super fun as well. Not to be confused with the recently released Shantae Half Genie Hero, which did get a full retail release. Risky's Revenge and Pirate's Curse, however, go for $90 to $100 on the secondary market these days, and the price will continue to go up. Next up is yet another game that was never released in the United States, making it pretty rare to come by. Toro is a bullfighting game that was only released in Spain and other similar regions. The game itself is pretty simple and actually got terrible reviews. It's pretty clear why this game never made its way onto American shelves, as bullfighting is kind of frowned upon here in the States. You can actually download it from the PSN for $5, but for any collector, physical copies are the only way to go, and to get your hands on one, you'll have to import it from overseas. Again, it's not crazy expensive, but the shipping will cost a bit, and getting a copy will cost you around $40 to $50 depending on where you get it shipped from. Futuridium was another limited run game with only 2,000 copies ever printed. The game was a very neat retro style shooter, or shmup if you want to call it that. The gameplay is fast-paced and super addicting. Definitely one of the better limited games they've ever put out. And overall, a great little shooter game that many people are after for the collection. A lot of shooters seem to go up in price. People out there always looking for good shooters and good RPGs, and this is a great shooter. With the print run being one of the lowest ever, even for limited run games, the supply of copies in the secondary market is incredibly low, and prices out there are getting higher and higher. Most copies are sold for $70 to $80 these days. Number 4 goes to Gravity Rush Remastered, which originally came out only on the Vita, but was such a popular game that Sony decided to bring it to the PS4, but it was only sold in limited numbers and only on Amazon's website. Needless to say, not many copies are out there for sale these days, and with the recent release of Gravity Rush 2 on the PS4, the series has gained a massive following, and the demand for the remastered version has skyrocketed. The game is selling for well over $100 right now, and unless they decide to do another print run of the game, it will remain highly collectible. That's why I'm pretty happy that I actually picked up a copy at a local GameStop for $30 a few months back. If you want to check that out and check out the rest of my over 50 PS4 games in my collection, check out my PS4 collection video. There'll be a link in the end of the video and in the description. Number 3 goes to Retro City Rampage DX, which is a top-down 8-bit free roam adventure game inspired by Grand Theft Auto and developed exclusively almost by one man. The game can be downloaded on PSN, but a limited run of the physical copies were created for fans, and only 2,000 were ever sold, and 50 were given out at a PlayStation event. But due to the hype surrounding the game and the fact that Retro City Rampage is simply a great game, it's super fun, it remains one of the most highly sought after PS4 games. Now, it is important to note that the game originally only had 2,000 copies printed, and it was very exclusive, but has since been re-released with a newer version and a different cover art. That newer version is pretty cheap, costing around $20 to $25, but the original print run with the different cover still demands a very high price to collectors and goes for well over $100. Coming in at number 2 on our list is a somewhat surprisingly rare game, one that you would never think to be this rare, but it actually is. Saints Row 4 Re-Elected. Like I said, it's extremely common. However, the Australian first print version is insanely rare. Now, the backstory behind this is when Saints Row 4 was originally supposed to come out for PS3 in Australia, their government made the developers restrict and remove certain parts of the game's content in order to give it an acceptable rating to be sold on Australian shelves. That was the last-gen version. Now, that version ended up meeting the requirements and was able to be sold. It was, however, remastered and re-released on PS4, and when they did this, they re-released the PS4 version as a version that wasn't restricted. It didn't have those things taken out. It was the uncut American version that was released in Australia. However, it was quickly noticed, and they recalled all the copies of it. The developer Deep Silver announced nationwide recalls and refunds for everyone that brought a copy back. They could get a new version that was acceptable and all that kind of stuff. So most of those copies were taken off shelves and destroyed. It is not known just how many copies still exist of the original Australian first print run, but collectors are willing to pay a pretty penny for a copy of one, well over $150. And finally, our number 1 game goes to Saturday Morning RPG, which is easily the most sought after limited run game title out there. Saturday Morning RPG takes a lot of inspiration from 80s Saturday morning cartoons and features JRPG gameplay, which is pretty good in my opinion. The game was highly rated and received with much praise from fans and critics alike, but with only 2,000 physical copies ever made, you can see how demand has skyrocketed and the prices have gone up. Again, as with all limited run games, you can download the game digitally, but for those hardcore collectors who only want physical media, they'll have to pay a hefty price if they missed out on the original sale of the game. There are only a handful of copies that are ever pop up for sale every now and then, and that number will decrease over time as all the copies find their way into private collections. If you want a copy, I suggest doing it sooner rather than later, but you're still going to have to spend well over $150 for it these days. But until next time, guys, that's all I have time for today. I hope you guys all enjoyed. If you guys did, make sure to hit that like button as it really helps out my channel. Let's aim for 500 likes in the video. Like I said, we really appreciate you guys to do that. Also, check out some of my other PS4 videos on the channel. I've got links to them in the description and the end slate. Also, subscribe for more daily gaming content in your sub boxes. But until next time, guys, remember that's always KMAC time somewhere. So take it easy and peace out.
Enjoy.